Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop on how to leverage the LinkedIn Alumni tool and build your network. I'm happy that you're joining me today. My name is Dorothy Baumgartner.
And I'm Christy Graham.
Christy is my colleague. We are career advisors in career and professional development here at WGU. And Christy's here today to help support questions in the chat. She'll do a little bit of presenting. So if you have questions throughout the workshop, please do put them in the chat and she'll get to them. And if there's something that is of note that she thinks would be beneficial for everybody, she'll call that to our attention. So let's just do a little bit of housekeeping here. First of all, we recognize that everybody has different learning styles and busy lives and things like that. So don't hesitate to step away and stretch or take care of things as you need to, because as you heard and see on the screen, this workshop is being recorded. We will be sending a link to the recording out after the system's done processing it, hopefully later today. Sometimes it can take 24 hours, but for sure by tomorrow you'll get that. And but we do want to encourage you to make note of this email here at the bottom of your screen, careers@wgu.edu. This can help. This is a great email to keep track of because this is our team email. So if you think of a question after the workshop today, or you don't get your question answered, or if you have a question about a different career topic, we're happy to answer questions for you by that email. So jot that down. That'd be great. And so with that, let's get started. So this is the roadmap of what we're going to cover today. We're just going to do sort of a brief overview of networking, kind of an introduction, and then do some networking tips. We're going to talk a little bit about why LinkedIn is an important tool in your job search and in your career pathway. And then we're going to show you how to use a really important feature of LinkedIn called the LinkedIn Alumni tool that most people don't know about. So we're excited to share that with you. And then we'll just touch a little bit on how to overcome networking nerves because lots of people have those. So we recognize that's a thing out there. But first, let's do a little bit of an overview and just talk about how important is your network. So here's the statistical information that's important for you to know about, and that is that up to 80% of all jobs are found through networking. So most companies prefer hiring through their networks because it's more effective, it's more efficient, they get good quality candidates, and that's where they start. And so when you are looking on the big job boards, Indeed and ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Monster, all of those, what you're seeing there could be as low as 20% of the jobs that are available at a given time. So most jobs are really in this hidden job market of networking. So if you are only sending applications through those job boards, you are really literally playing a numbers game that's stacked against you. So think about the math there. There's a small amount of jobs available, lots of people applying for those. So we want to really encourage you to think about how can you pivot to becoming an active job seeker versus a static job seeker. You're more in a sort of a static kind of role. If you are applying for jobs online, you're saying, here I am, if you want me to say so. Active job seekers are engaged in building their network, building those mutually beneficial business relationships. Networking can move your application from one in a stack of hundreds to near the top of the pile with a referral or recommendation. And so, or better yet, you get a job before it's even posted. And so there's no pile of resumes to compete with at all. So just to be a little bit more specific about this, let's look at some of these numbers. 75% of people are using those job application boards. Only 2% secure interviews. So when you say, I've applied to 10 jobs and I haven't heard anything, you're probably going to have to, more than triple those numbers to try to get some response. So think about the fact that over approximately 250 people apply for any open role at least. Some get interviews and one wins the job. So the competition's pretty fierce going that way. Whereas networking, you see only 7% of applicants are referrals. And so you think about it as if you're a recruiter or an employer and you're combing through all of these resumes, but you get somebody internally to say, hey, I really want to recommend this person to you, you're likely going to pay attention to that. So this is a little bit of, just to give you a little bit of a sense of the power that networking can give to you, and also the effectiveness of it in terms of being as efficient as you can with your job search. So how do I get started with networking? So the first thing I'm going to do is just invite you to pop into the chat, anything that you think about when you hear the word networking, good or bad, like what does that bring up for you? And we'd just love to have several examples. So everybody, if you just pop, what's a word or two that you think of when you think of networking? Responding to posts, uncomfortable. Starting with a warm market, people that's a nice way to put that. Yep. Opportunity. Yep. Anybody nervous about it? Creating a post. Okay. Relationships, building relationships. Panic inducing. Absolutely. That's true for a lot of people. There's a lot of nervousness. It feels kind of intimidating. You're sticking your neck out. It's the cold calling kind of thing. And that stops a lot of people. It prevents a lot of people from really engaging in that. So that's realistic. So that's part of why we want to do this workshop, to help you learn more about it and get some tools and gain some confidence so that you can start confidently to build your own network. So thanks for everybody that participated in that. It really, in some ways, we want I want to encourage you to sort of think about what is the mindset that you have about networking. So like we saw in some of those posts, it's a lot of people think it's just for this very uncomfortable, panic-inducing kind of experience. But let's think about it and try to shift that framework a little bit. One of the things to keep in mind is that how do you feel when somebody asks for your advice? People are often really flattered if you ask them to share their experience and their expertise. And most humans are storytellers and like to talk about themselves. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. So the other thing is that there's kind of a paying it forward aspect of networking that can be really helpful to keep in mind. Some of the people we were hoping to help you access through the use of this LinkedIn alumni tool that we're going to show you in a little while are people who went through WGU and got a hand from somebody who went in front of them. And they're thankful for that, and they're interested in paying it forward. So try to think about all those people that are out there on LinkedIn, for example, or attending network events. They're there to network. And so they are interested in connecting. It's not like you're asking them some sort of special favor, because they felt the value of it before and they want to connect. And here's the other thing about networking is you never know what's going to happen in those conversations. You might be able to provide some information to somebody that you just, you wouldn't have anticipated. So I want to help you try to pivot your thinking to think about networking as building mutually beneficial business relationships. So right when, initially when you're reaching out to people, you might feel like you don't have anything to offer, but as I said, you never know. And you're going to hear our team talk about that when we talk about networking opportunities. You never know what's going to happen. So maybe you reach out to somebody and ask them, if they'd be willing to share their job experience, and they might say, "Oh, you live in, in Colorado, in Denver. I'm thinking about moving there. Can I pick your brain about that a little bit?" You just don't know what you're going to be able to offer. So, okay, there's kind of an interesting thing, something in the chat caught my eye. Christy, you want to catch us up there? I see that you made a comment.
People are still putting in their thoughts about networking as you're talking. Right. And so Bill had put in a note saying that he's concerned that people in his network seem to quickly quit responding when they feel like, there's a hint of any kind of recommendations or referrals. And I had heard this recently from a colleague on our team, actually, that there's really only one letter different between not working and networking. So it's all really about the finesse of balancing, building that relationship and having that come up organically, because you don't want to, immediately be asking for, any favors. You want to just really be engaging with them, like Dorothy's talking about, with the conversation, and have them kind of bring up, "Oh, well, we do have an open position." So that's a little note from my colleague.
Yeah, that's an interesting, I hadn't heard that. So thanks for sharing that. That's an interesting way of thinking of it. Yeah, so the mindset is really important. And really what I want to, we're talking about informational interviews still, but we're starting to shift some of that language to really be talking about that kind of activity as career conversations. And that's really, I think, a better framework to be thinking about them in, because again, you're trying to learn things about their experience. You might be asking for their advice. You'll see, we do advise that you refrain from just straight out saying, do you have any jobs, or do you know any jobs that are available? But you are asking about, like, I've shared a little bit about myself, and I've learned some things from you. I'm really curious to know if you have any particular advice for me. That may be a way to start to invite them to talk about opportunities that they know about that could fit you, as opposed to saying, what job opportunities are you aware of? So again, it's trying to build that mutually beneficial business relationship is a good framework to think about networking, and help reduce some of the anxiety around it, and potentially produce some richer conversations. All right, so how do I do this? How do I start to expand my network? We're going to go more in depth in some of the informational interviews in the LinkedIn Alumni tool at the bottom of this list, but some other things to think about are to polish your LinkedIn profile. And I will make a pitch at the end of this workshop. I've got some notes about some upcoming workshops. We're launching a new set of LinkedIn and networking workshops in September, and next week there's one that's about developing a powerful LinkedIn profile. So if you need some work on your profile, you may want to consider attending that workshop as well. Do create an elevator pitch if you don't have one yet. I've got a sample in a few slides ahead, but that is an elevator pitch. If you're not familiar with that, is that sort of very short summary of who you are, highlighting some things about you. And the word comes from, if you happen to step on an elevator with the CEO of a company that you're interested in, how are you going to use that time to help to advocate for yourself and make a connection that may result in a career opportunity? So what are 3 things that you want the person to come away with? And so you want to have a basic elevator pitch in place. Don't memorize it, because then it comes across obviously sounding memorized and rehearsed. And so you want to be sort of memorize your points, and then just keep it flexible enough that you can customize it when you're in different situations. But having something like that ready so that you can really, quickly come up with, here's a few things about me that would be important to share. Join the Night Owls Network when you graduate. This is an alumni group that's really beneficial for our alumni. We've, have alumni talk about making connections and getting ideas about job leads, professional organizations, advice from their colleagues. So that's a great thing to look forward to when you graduate. And if you've already graduated, be sure you look that up. Join professional organizations. You may want to be looking, there are a lot of national organizations, but there's a lot of local ones too. So don't forget about those. Local and regional chapters will often provide job boards in your area, and they are a great place to look for in-person networking opportunities. Excuse me. We also have some professional development organizations on our webpage. There's a professional development page on our website that can give you some suggestions for where to start in your field. I would recommend that you talk with your program mentor about what are the professional organizations that they'd recommend for you, since they know a little bit about a little more than we do about what you're trying to achieve. So those are all resources to try to find access to professional organizations that can support you in terms of networking and professional development. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to spend a little more time on informational interviews or career conversations and using the LinkedIn Alumni tool. So, let's see, is there anything else we need to address in the chat yet? Okay, so I'm going to move on to talking about like what is networking actually? I mean, it's really building connections and having conversations with people. And that's really most of what networking is, and there's some things that you need to do to prepare for that. So these kind of career conversations or informational interviews really are, if you look at this quote here, if you want to go somewhere where you've never been, it's best to find someone who's already been there. That's really what you're doing, is you're leaning on the experience and expertise of people who've already walked that path or a similar path to what you're trying to do. So here's a little bit about why we really encourage this. Year after year after year, the research done on career pathways and job searches demonstrates a really consistent statistic that is on average, 1 in 12 informational interviews yields a job offer. So you you think about that relative to all the time that you're spending sending out. I mean, I've talked with people who said, I've sent out 500 job applications. Well, there may be other issues going on there, but think about the amount of time it takes to do that kind of heavy applying. It might feel like a little heavier lift initially to try to make these connections to get to the point where you're having conversations. But this is a pretty solid statistics. Another one that I want to throw at you is that I recently saw an article from one of these national organizations that does research on job searches. And their statistic was that if your return on investment for just applying on the online boards is about 4% in terms of successfully landing a job, your return on an investment for successfully landing a job through networking is over 50%. So it's well worth your time to invest the effort to develop these relationships and try to get connected to these conversations. So you can do these, you can do this from your desk. And that's the other thing that's easy. You don't have to necessarily go to a conference or a networking opportunity, although in person is probably the most effective way to network. But you can do this as you have time from your desk. You can do research through using your network. You can learn about people's career trajectories, what are the skills that they have. You can do these conversations either by phone, email, or video, or through LinkedIn messaging. And an important thing about networking is always the who else question. So when you're communicating with somebody, whatever mode you're communicating with them, you want to be sure, obviously, after you thank them for their time, to ask them, is there anyone else that you'd recommend that I connect with? That's the way you really start to deepen even further your network and the opportunities that you have access to that you would likely never see otherwise. So these are really important kinds of conversations to try to start to generate and engage in. So I mentioned your elevator pitch a few minutes ago, and I just want to give you a little sample here. You're welcome to take a screenshot of this while the slide is up. Well, again, we're also sending the recording out so you can capture it then. But this is a sort of boilerplate elevator pitch framework in case you don't know how to get started with it. So you usually want to stick to education, work history, your skills, your interest in the field, what you're looking to do. This can also help you, by the way, as a side note, with the tell me about yourself question in an interview. So again, this is a really good asset to develop for yourself. And we've got some other sample introductory templates a little bit later when we're talking about how you engage with people to request those informational interviews, but this is a good start. So start with your elevator pitch. And then let's talk a little bit about how you approach. So you want to customize your message. Let's say when we show you the LinkedIn Alumni tool, that's a great way to do, to generate some leads. But you want to customize a message so they know a little bit about who you are. Yeah, and in our case, we're talking, I'm a WGU student. If you're networking with somebody who did the same degree program that you're in, to identify that, say a little bit about what you're interested in learning about. You want to note that you saw something in their profile or however you've learned about this person that piqued your interest and as part of the reason that you're reaching out to them. Let them know that you're looking for advice. And again, here, you're not directly asking for a job or an internship, but you're looking for to learn from them, to seek their input, and what kind of advice they might have for you. And then obviously you're directly asking, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share, 10 minutes of your time, 20 minutes of your time in a brief phone call, or would you be willing to answer a few questions for me over the LinkedIn messaging platform? So this is an approach that you can use. This is what you want to, kind of the sequence that you want to go through. And now, so I want to make a pitch again for in-person networking contacts as much as possible. And sometimes we don't really think about it. You know your contacts, you know your friends, your family, the people that they know. It's just sort of part of our world. And sometimes it takes sitting down and really intentionally thinking, okay, is there anybody that I know that's doing this kind of work or that is connected to somebody? I mean, you may not know somebody personally, but you might know that one of your friends has a really good friend who's a very successful, software engineer, for example. So try to think through all of your personal contacts first. Somebody at work. Your current place of work, if you're currently employed, is also a good place to start asking questions. I mean, obviously not all work environments, do you want to signal that you're looking for something else? But there are places like WGU is really good and very upfront about trying to support employees in their professional development. And so those kinds of networking conversations are welcomed here. So if you're in an organization or a company that welcomes that, reach out to, your HR people and say, hey, I'm really interested in exploring X, is there anybody that you'd recommend that I talk with? Or you may have those personal contacts yourself. Those are really fairly easy conversations to set up because you're in the same environment, and you can say, hey, I'm trying to learn about some new opportunities. So start with personal connections. And then if you are getting stumped or you want to branch out farther, we would really recommend that you spend some time building your network on LinkedIn. And we're going to pivot to that here. So why LinkedIn? It is an incredibly powerful career support tool. This is a way that you can build your own professional brand online and build out your network. You can get information, all kinds of information about jobs and industries and other professionals, companies. And by the way, you also have access to LinkedIn Learning as a WGU person. So if you haven't accessed that, don't miss that resource. There are lots of really great learning opportunities on there. Here are a few stats about LinkedIn. Over 900 million members worldwide. Look at, 58 million more companies. We've got nearly 250,000 people that are WGU alumni that are affiliated with our organizational page. So you have access to all of those people and their profiles, which we're going to tap into here. And again, 94% of recruiters use LinkedIn to find people, so it's really important to have the presence on LinkedIn that you want to project as your professional brand. So we're going to jump now directly to LinkedIn, and I'm going to pull up a couple resources here. Let's see. First, I'm going to do this really quickly. I'm going to show you, this is one of our colleagues who's like kind of a super user on LinkedIn. Let's see. So I'm going to show you her profile. And she is going to be working with me next week to do that workshop that I mentioned in developing a powerful LinkedIn profile. So you see there are things here like your headline. Look at how much she's got in there. A lot of people just put a job title, but this is one of the top sections in your LinkedIn profile that a recruiter algorithm is going to hit. So you want to make this as keyword rich as possible that's appropriate with words that are appropriate for your industry. So that's one thing you want to pay attention to. She's got lots of highlights and verifications in here and things that are featured in her activity. Lots of people don't have that, but you can take a look at hers if you'd like to. You notice her name, McCall Searles. You're welcome to check out her profile. Look at her about section. This is a section that's really underutilized by most people on LinkedIn. And we're going to go through some of these things next week, so I'm not going to go into depth now, but you'll see that she is really demonstrating value propositions here in the way she's organized her about section, what I bring to the table, how I cultivate client success. So these are some ways that you can organize your about section. And again, this is one of those indexed sections in recruiter searches. So you want to make sure you take full advantage of including information that is about the job you want. So I have not mentioned that yet, but you want to make sure your LinkedIn profile is really oriented to your future job, not your past job or your current jobs. Especially if you're a career changer, you want to be using language that's aspirational about the role that you want. So this is a great profile to look through. And again, I'm not going to spend any more time on this because I really would love to have you attend that workshop next week or register for it so you get the recording, because we're going to go much more in depth in that. But it is really important that you get that up to date and have your profile be as keyword rich as possible. But I am going to jump now to the LinkedIn Alumni tool, and let me, since I've got it here, I'm going to pop it in the chat really quickly. You're going to go onto LinkedIn and look for the main WGU organization page. There's also an alumni page. That's not what we're talking about, but this is what it looks like. I put it in the chat. You can grab it, but you can always look it up again. So the LinkedIn Alumni tool is on every college or university page. So if you've earned a degree or attended somewhere else, this may also be true for that university or college. And so I'd recommend that you look there as well. Use all of the networking connections and opportunities that you have. So what you'll see is there's this general information about the university, and then there's this series of tabs. So we're going to click the Alumni tab, and this is the LinkedIn Alumni tool. And the purpose of this tool, let's see, I have this drop down here. The purpose of this tool is to help you locate and identify people that align with your goals and your interests. So it's got a search field here, and it's got start and end year if this is relevant for you, especially if you've done like an undergraduate degree at another college or university. You may want to find people in your class that you may know. That's what the start and end year is for. But this next section here are a series of filters. Where they work, where they live, and then you see this arrow on the upper right corner of the box. You can also see what they do, what they're skilled at, what they studied, and how you're connected. So there are those 6 filters that you can use. So between your keyword search and the filters, that's how you find people that align with your goals and interests. I will say this is a little bit of an exercise in playing around with this a little bit. So if you're not getting the results you want, you may want to be changing your keyword or your filter. And then what happens is if you scroll down, you see profiles. And these are profiles of the people that are in the results of your pool. So right now, there's 246 people showing up in those profiles. We'd be scrolling forever. But you want to try to find a manageable volume of people, dependent on how much time you've got to invest in doing this kind of research and networking. So, let's try something. If somebody wants to pop something in the chat that you're interested in doing, what's one of the jobs that you're interested in pursuing, and I want to use that as a little bit of a demonstration. Anybody have one? Let's see, what's the first one? Data analytics. We'll use data analytics. Okay, I'm going to recommend that you put, well, don't you love it when people are watching you type? Anything that you put in here that has multiple words, I'd recommend that you put in quotation marks. And so let's see what we're going to get here. 6,220 alumni. So if you've got a lot of time, Garrett, you might want to look through all of those, but we might want to filter that down a little bit. So maybe you're interested in working at AWS or Verizon, or you are looking for a site-based job and you might want to find your area. And if it's not listed in the top results of this filter, I want to make sure you see this plus add button. So let's say we want to add, what's not in here? I'm gonna do, is Denver in here? I don't know why Denver is on my mind tonight, but so I can choose either Denver or Denver metropolitan area. Let's see how that filters down. We've got 95 people. I might have time to work with that kind of group, but I might also want to narrow it down a little bit. And you would think that so this is somebody that these are people that have skills that are listed as data analytics, so I might choose that skill filter as well. I think I can, over the next couple of weeks, look through 68 profiles. So what I'm going to do is scroll down and start to look at some of these profiles. So there's several things you can do with this tool. One is just looking at profiles. As you're updating your profile, it might give you some ideas about your own profile. Now notice there's no banner on this one. One of the things that you'll learn in that workshop next week is that having a banner image increases your profile views. It increases the attractiveness of it. So what you can do is look at what is their experience? What was their education? what have they got listed for their skills? So this is, I would just spend some time kind of combing through, looking for some ideas about profiles if I was needing to update mine. But the other thing that you're trying to do then is to say, like, who are the people that are doing the kind of work? Here's a senior data developer in the Colorado area. Let's say I'm really interested in this, and I think, wow, I'm looking at this at Jeffrey's profile, and I'm thinking there's a lot. I feel like a lot of alignment here. Jeffrey's somebody that I'm definitely going to want to connect with, and maybe somebody that I want to reach out for a career conversation. So there's two things that I think are really valuable about doing this exercise. Once you've done that search and filtering to a point where you feel pretty satisfied that you're, this is a good group of people that align with, what you're wanting to do. Send connection requests to all of them. Stay away from the LinkedIn generic one that says, please add me to your professional network, because they don't know why you're some random person out there trying to connect. Say, I'm at WGU, I'm finishing my degree in data analytics. I'm interested in moving to Colorado. I ran across your profile. It would be great to connect. Something like that. 2 or 3 points of connections, affinity connections that identify, what you have in common will increase the likelihood that people are going to accept your connection request. Most of the time, people that have gone to the same university and especially in the same program are likely going to accept your requests. The reason you want to do this kind of connection with as many people who are in your aspirational field is that starts to affect what shows up on your feed in LinkedIn. So you'll start to see things that they post, articles, questions that they're thinking about, tools that they've discovered or are using, conferences that they're going to. It kind of gets you inside the industry chatter, which can just be helpful in terms of learning more about the industry and kind of getting in the ethos of that. Remember a long time ago when I said most companies hire the majority of their employees through their network. Oftentimes, they will go to their professional industry networks, but they'll often go to their employee networks and say, we're hiring a new data analytics position. Would you please share this with your network? Where are people going to do that? Probably on LinkedIn. So if you're connected to them, that is more likely to show up in your feed. Now, while this isn't going to be just, an incredible number of job opportunities, it's more likely that these are going to be better qualified leads for you. So that's why broadening your network is really important, because that brings you more opportunities in your feed. But then you want to start deepening your network, and that's where you're going to start reaching out to request these career conversations with some of your fellow WGU people. And that's probably, I'll show you a sample request about how to reach out to them. But these are the opportunities where you can really learn from them. What's it really like, doing this kind of work? Here's a little bit about what I'm interested in doing. Do you, based on your experience, am I headed in the right direction? What are things that you'd recommend that I stay aware of? What advice do you have for me? You can ask me anything you want. But here is, again, where, and I mentioned this earlier, at the end of that conversation, you want to be sure to ask them, is there anyone else you'd recommend that I connect with? And if they say, sure, I have a buddy over at Microsoft. They told me they're hiring, you should contact them. Hopefully they're going to say, I'll send them an email and let them know that you're coming. If they don't offer to make that kind of connection, I would follow up by saying, that's so great. I'll be sure to contact them. Is it okay with you if I use your name when I contact them? And that's usually enough to prompt people to say, oh, sure, I'll send a text, let them know you're coming. Anytime you can get them to introduce you, you're going to get one of those warm contacts that I don't recall who it was, but somebody mentioned in the chat when we talked about networking. That's a warm introduction. It's more likely that that second person is going to respond to your request because you're not just some random person that's contacting them. One of their colleagues or friends recommended that they talk with you. So you want to try to get introduced as much as possible. Okay, Christy, can you think of anything else about this tool that you'd like to add at this point?
Yeah. In addition to, connecting and doing these informational interviews, you can actually get a lot of really great information by looking at these individuals' profiles because these are the industry experts, especially if there are any like career changers or folks that are pivoting their career towards a different area that they might not have a lot of experience. I think that, like when you're looking at the individual profiles, you can see what where the transitions are. So maybe they started in food services and then they took an entry level job into, data analytics that you didn't even know was a job that might be kind of a transitional. So it can be very insightful in addition to building those connections and also, uncovering job opportunities. So I would, while you're combing through their profiles, you might even see something. Oh, I'm noticing that a lot of these individuals, like let's say, for data analytics, they have certain certifications. That might be like a talking point that you can reach out to them about. Just say, hey, I noticed that you have this certification. Does this does that certification is it really required? Is it going to help me be a stronger candidate? So I really encourage the use of the tool because it can, even if you're not ready to start applying for jobs, you can really start to get an idea of, making these connections with these industry experts.
Yep. Yep, for sure. And I just want to reiterate, I think, this is a pretty flexible tool. So I didn't mention this before, but you can use this a lot of different ways. Let's say you do find a job posting somewhere else, one of those job boards. And I do want to say, I'm not suggesting that you don't apply to postings that you see on the job board. I just want you to be realistic about kind of, the return on your investment for that. But if you find a role that you're really interested somewhere else, I would come here right away and put in the name of that company and see if you can find any other WGU people who are working for that company that you might be able to connect with. To say, hey, I'm interested in a role in your company. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to chat with me a little bit about, I have some questions about your company. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can use this. The other thing is be creative with your keyword search. And most likely you're going to be going after a job title, or you might be wanting to look for people that are in your degree. But you can also be creative. Let's say you are, I want to think of a good example. I mean, I've used this before and it's kind of silly, but just to make the point is, let's say you're in data analytics, but you really love animals, you love pets, you have a whole bunch of pets, and you just never thought about putting those things together. But if you do a search for pets in here, I've done it in the past, and comes up with 570 some people or something, you might find somebody who's working for one of the national pet companies. And just ping them and say, hey, I'm really interested in, I mean, I love animals, I'd love working for this company, this is my field though. Like, is there anything that fits in there? You just I mean, like, so you might find an opportunity to do analysis for pet company sales or something like that. And so it's kind of a funny little example, but I just do that to say, like, don't get locked into like really traditional access here. Be creative with the way you're searching for things so that you're looking for opportunities that blend your interests, to find really maybe some potentially very interesting work that aligns with you that you hadn't really thought about doing before. Okay, so I'm going to jump back then to our PowerPoint, and I'm going to give you, once you've identified some of these people on LinkedIn, here's a way that you can approach people. And this one is a little bit formal, but again, it's kind of a boilerplate that you can use. This is the kind of thing that this is kind of the approach that you want to use. And again, I do think it's pretty formal. You want to make it your own, but this just gives you some of the content that you want to include. So again, feel free to take a screenshot of that. And again, you'll be able to retrieve it in the recording. I've got another one that's pretty different than this that I want to also share with you. And that's on the next slide. And that is this. There's a couple guys that helped to build the LinkedIn Alumni tool, and they branched out and created their own company. And this is a recommendation from them. So this is less formal, more stylistic. So I just wanted to provide this opportunity for you as well to see, to help you see how flexible you can be with this. But that's another approach that you may want to use as you're reaching out to make these connections. Okay, LinkedIn is not the only place you can do that. We have an internal system called Handshake, which I'm assuming most of you are familiar with because our workshops happen through Handshake. And Christy's going to talk for a little bit so you don't have to listen to me all the time. And she's going to just talk with you a little bit about what Handshake can help you do.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't have a Handshake login, it's very easy to just request a Handshake login. We don't give it to everyone automatically, but as a student and as an alumni, you'll have access to Handshake for your lifetime once you graduate. So Handshake is kind of like the hub of all things that are career related, and a lot of institutions do use the same platform. What the nice thing about it is, it's more than just a job board. It is really that hub. The employers that are connected through WGU are on Handshake, and this is a really great way for you to connect with these vetted employers. They're really reputable, and we have, I think, over 500,000 employers that are actively seeking to network and to, um, fill their positions with WG graduates because they know that the output and they know the value that they're getting. Now, you have the ability to research these employers. So if there is a particular employer that you really feel like your values and are in line with, or a tech company that maybe you want to grow with, you can search to see if they are part of the WG network. That you can take a look to see if they have events. This is your opportunity for you to have events that they're putting on, and maybe if it's a small group especially, you might be able to get their contact information, find out if they're on LinkedIn, connect with them, and maintain that connection. You can also find your fellow WGU students and alumni that are part of the Handshake community. So, I would recommend you can certainly look them up and then find them on LinkedIn too. So it's very similar in a way, but just to the WGU community that LinkedIn does. It's a social media kind of platform, but then it has so much more than that. If you do find a job opportunity, you can save them. You can save employers so that, in the job boards, you get, notifications when they are hiring, which can be a time saver. But Handshake is wonderful for all things that are career related, especially for networking and job searching. So I highly recommend that if you don't have one, to go ahead and request that and start. The biggest thing that I would recommend to make Handshake work for you is to make sure that you have your profile set to, you want to include as much as you can. So get your profile at 100% completion rate, and you can easily do that. There's a little completion bar that you can follow along with. But the idea is similar to the LinkedIn. The more you include, there's a journey section where you can freeform include what you're looking for. You can highlight skills, you can highlight how many years of experience you have in that particular field. And it's a way for these employers that are actively seeking WGU students and alumni to find you. So I do recommend that if you do find an employer or a job that you're interested in applying for on Handshake, that you go on to LinkedIn and you follow them so that you can utilize both the platforms. The news feed feature will then start to show if there are jobs or industry kind of news related to that particular company. And then I would recommend, if they do have a job, go to Handshake and apply in Handshake rather than in LinkedIn, because it's going to be really geared towards those WGU students and alumni only. Anything you want to add on Handshake, Dorothy?
No, just to reinforce that last point, applying through Handshake, again, it moves you to the top of the pile because they are actively looking for WGU students, alumni. And so as opposed to just being a general candidate from an external application system, Handshake does offer you that benefit. It better qualifies your application. So great thing to keep in mind. Thanks, Christy.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to just touch a little bit on some of those, panic-inducing responses that we had in the beginning in terms of networking nerves. Just briefly, having that elevator pitch confidently under your belt can be really helpful, because then you have a good starting point and you're not, stumbling around. And, that initial interaction is the thing that we all get hung up on. If we sort of feel awkward about that, it kind of sets the tone for the rest of how we're engaging. So if you feel really confident about how you start off, that's going to help you. So do prepare that. And then, make sure you're doing your research and plan ahead. If you're going to an in-person networking event, that this is really related to. So if you're going to an in-person or a conference, try to find out as much as you can about the kind of people that are going to be there, or what companies are going to be represented there. If you can, individuals, look them up on LinkedIn, look them up on the company website, see whatever you can find out about them. It just gives you a better sense of context and may give you some ideas about some questions to ask them during that career conversation. These kind of interviews and conversations can be done in, as we were saying, any kind of mode that's comfortable for you. And so it is, again, like sort of an introvert's best friend to be able to do desktop networking through LinkedIn and email, and even, and phone calls. So think about the variety of ways that you can contact people, and don't get stuck in a, like, I have to go to an event and stick out my hand. And networking is so much more than that. And then remember that mindset thing that I was talking about in the beginning. It's really about building mutually beneficial business relationships, and everybody who is out there, either in an in-person event or on LinkedIn Invisible, they're there because they want to be visible and they want to network. So hopefully that can help increase your confidence in connecting with them. I am going to right now, I just want to jump really quickly to our website. So this is the career, Christy, if you could grab the URL for that and stick it in the chat, that would be great. This is our website for career and professional development. And I just want to point you to some additional resources here. So if you go up to the career tools here, just to the right of the WGU, let's see, can you see my pointer here? Yeah. Oops, that went back to my PowerPoint. That's not what I meant to do. Let's try this. Yeah. Oh, I got myself a little messed up here. Let's try again. Here we go. Be right back there with you. Okay. So when you're on this website, you're going to go up to the career tools and then look at the resource library and get the job. Okay, that was career tools, resource library, get the job. And on this menu, if you scroll down, you'll see two things here. There's networking and social media. So the networking section here has some good information. I particularly want to point out the download the networking guide. This is a PDF that you can download. You do have to be signed in with your W credentials to download it, to access it. But this will help you if you like, if you like a structured approach to taking on new things. This can be a really helpful guide for you. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out to you, and would strongly recommend that you grab that. And then there's some additional networking resources here. Also, social media. This is where that LinkedIn user guide that we were talking about. I'm just going to give you a quick peek at that. Nope, wrong. Sorry, hit the wrong thing there. Pardon me. Where am I? Social media, LinkedIn user guide. Here's download the LinkedIn user guide, and that's right here. So this is what this looks like. And again, as I mentioned before, this is the form that we actually use to review your LinkedIn profile. What we've done is created a resource here for you that gives you tips about how to, what do you need to know about your profile? What are some things that are important about your headline? Look at all this great information. And there are links to additional resources to help you do that. So it's quite a comprehensive resource. So I'd recommend that you grab that as well. So those are two really good places. I mean, if you haven't been on our website, look at all of these other things, just as a PSA for you. If you need some help with your resumes, cover letters, interview prep, all of these things are really helpful. So just really quickly, as an aside from networking, just want to point out that this resource library is great. Planning your career, if you're in the early phases, you want to take a look at that. We were just in the get the job, but there's also great diversity resource. If you're a diversity candidate or a vet, there's some great resources here. So just want to make sure you know about those things. I've managed to, let's see, I got to get my workshop, my PowerPoint back up here. Sorry. All right, so just to reiterate, we've got these other workshops coming up in September, as I mentioned. Developing your LinkedIn profile, if you want some assistance in enhancing your profile, that's next week. There's a personal branding. There's another similar networking to this one too, but there's personal branding, and then there's maximizing LinkedIn for your job search. Do check these out in Handshake on the events page, because these will be great next steps for you to take. All right, Christy, how are we doing with questions?
I'm
Anything?
actually I have one question, and I was typing a response. So Liz had asked, you were talking about Handshake versus like public job boards, and so she asked if applying for a job found on like Handshake, if it's better to just go to the company's website if that's going to bring it higher. So I was saying that, if I saw a position on Handshake, and I would apply on Handshake because the recruiters are actively looking for WGU graduates and alumni. It would be redundant to go to the company website, but if you saw like on Indeed or LinkedIn or a job board, I always go to the company's website to apply. I don't think it's going to bring you up any higher or not. Um, because it's still a public place, but at least I know that it's a reputable company. I am doing a little bit of research, making sure that this company is right for me, and then I would go ahead and apply at a company's website. But if it's on Handshake and it's on the company website, I would absolutely be applying for the position on Handshake because it's only for students and alumni.
Right. And it may be an alum who's doing the hiring as well. We are increasingly seeing WGU grads coming back and wanting to hire WGU students. So there's that potential advantage as well. All right. Okay. Just want to make sure you know how to get in touch with us. We dropped our website URL in the chat earlier. There it is again. Again, here's our email, careers@wgu.edu. That's a great way that, if you think of something tonight, oh, I should have asked this question, feel free to use that email to check in with us. Or you can call this message line that you see there, use option 3 or that extension. Again, this is a message line, so you'll hear a recording and they'll ask you to leave your name and your question and your phone number and a good time to call you back. We try to get back to you within 4 business hours as long as you've left a message by 2 p.m. Mountain Time. Otherwise, we'll get back to you the next business day. So it's a pretty effective way to get a fairly quick response to your question and not have to wait for an appointment. And then we are on Facebook, of course, and we are also on LinkedIn. So
I
thanks.
just want to add
Yeah,
one
go
thing
ahead.
real quick before we go, because we have a little bit of time. I want to, like Dorothy was talking a little bit about in-person networking, and I just want everybody to be aware that to check in with your work source, your local work source or workforce offices, or even Chamber of Commerce, because you can find out about lots of opportunities to network. And that might be, like an event that's happening for STEM, or just a job fair that you can do some in-person networking. You can use a lot of these same concepts that Dorothy was describing with the elevator pitch and connection. And I think that if it's something that you're able to do, in-person networking is also really effective. It's a really great way for you to continue to expand. I would still, meet people in person. I would still absolutely go find them on Handshake or go find them on LinkedIn. But your local Chamber of Commerce or your local work source or workforce office that's helping individuals with job placements can be a really great source to find out about in-person events.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for adding that, Christy. Those local opportunities, may yield, something that you'd never be able to access anywhere else. So that's another tool in your arsenal of networking opportunities.
All
All
right.
right. Anything else? Well, I just want to say thanks so much for joining us today. We just really appreciate the opportunity to share these resources with you through these workshops. I want to encourage you to take advantage to of as many of them as possible. Again, you'll get the link to the recording as soon as it's done processing. And we are finished. So if you need to hop off, that's great. We can hang around for a few more minutes if anybody else has additional any questions. That's great. This was fire. Thank you all so much. Thanks, Garrett. Really appreciate that. Appreciate the feedback. You're very welcome, everybody. Thanks for the affirmations in the chat. We appreciate that a lot. Don't hesitate to let us know how we can be helpful to you. Make sure you grab all of these contact opportunities, and we are here to support you in your networking and your overall career journey.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, it looks like we don't have any questions. Great, glad you learned a lot, Bill. Good to have you with us today. All right, everybody, we're going to sign off. Thank you. Take care, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Bye.